Dr. Maya Thompson's heels echo purposefully through the gleaming marble halls of the Superior Court building, her designer briefcase swinging gently with each confident stride. The morning sun streams through towering windows, catching the golden threads of her silk scarf and highlighting her immaculately pressed charcoal suit. Her phone buzzes constantly with messages from CNN and legal journals requesting her expert commentary on a high-profile case, but today demands her complete attention. At 42, Dr. Thompson has earned her place among the most respected minds in courtroom analysis. Her journey began in the halls of Harvard Law, where she discovered her passion wasn't in practicing law, but in understanding the intricate dance of courtroom dynamics. 3 best-selling books and countless academic papers later, she's become the go-to expert for analyzing judicial behavior patterns. The security guard, James, greets her with a warm smile as she approaches the checkpoint. "Morning, Doc Thompson. Didn't expect to see you today." She returns his greeting while placing her belongings in the security bin. James has been here for all 15 years of her career, watching her transform from an eager young analyst to the accomplished professional she is today. "Special observation today, James," she replies, retrieving her credentials from her briefcase. "The Peterson case has some interesting behavioral patterns I'm studying." Her voice carries the quiet enthusiasm of someone deeply passionate about their work. The case has drawn national attention, but Dr. Thompson's interest lies in the subtle psychological elements at play. As she collects her belongings, a young law intern approaches, clutching a worn copy of her latest book, Courtroom Chronicles: The Psychology of Justice. The intern's hands tremble slightly as she asks for an autograph. Dr. Thompson obliges with a gentle smile, remembering her own days of nervous excitement as a student. She adds a personal note encouraging the young woman to pursue her dreams fearlessly. Checking her watch, Dr. Thompson realizes she's running slightly behind schedule. The morning traffic had been unexpectedly heavy, thanks to a sudden downpour that had now given way to brilliant sunshine. She quickens her pace, her mind already shifting to the day ahead. Her laptop contains months of research data, carefully documented observations of subtle patterns in judicial decision-making that most people would miss. The grand atrium bustles with activity. Attorneys hurrying between courtrooms, clerks carrying stacks of files, and nervous defendants waiting with their lawyers. Dr. Thompson observes it all with keen interest. Every gesture, every interaction feeds into her understanding of courtroom dynamics. She makes a mental note of several behavioral patterns she spots, planning to incorporate them into her upcoming paper for the Journal of Legal Psychology. Approaching courtroom 7B, she pauses briefly to check her appearance in a window's reflection. Her dark hair is perfectly styled, her makeup subtle yet professional. The credentials hanging around her neck identify her as a Federal Judicial Center senior analyst, though her reputation usually precedes her. She straightens her silk scarf, a gift from her mentor at Yale, and reaches for the courtroom door, unaware that the next few moments will become a case study in her future work that would impact courtrooms across the nation. The heavy wooden doors of courtroom 7B open with a gentle creak as Dr. Thompson steps inside. The room falls into immediate silence, the kind that always accompanies an unexpected interruption. A morning beam of sunlight streams through the tall windows, illuminating particles of dust that dance in the air like tiny stars. Judge Harrison Wells, presiding from his elevated bench, peers over his silver-rimmed reading glasses at the newcomer. The judge, celebrating his 20th year on the bench, has earned a reputation for maintaining strict decorum in his courtroom. His silver hair and distinguished features usually command respect, and today, his stern expression suggests irritation at the interruption. The case before him, a complex property dispute, has already tested his patience this morning. Dr. Thompson moves gracefully toward an empty seat, her heels clicking softly against the polished floor. The sound echoes in the hushed chamber. Several attorneys glance up from their legal pads, some with recognition flickering across their faces. A young clerk whispers something to her colleague, gesturing subtly toward Dr. Thompson's credentials. "Just a moment," Judge Wells announces, his voice carrying the weight of 2 decades of authority. The words sliced through the quiet like a knife. "Ma'am, we have strict protocols in this courtroom." His tone suggests he's addressing someone far less distinguished than a nationally recognized expert. Thompson pauses mid-stride, standing perfectly still. Her expression remains neutral, professional, though her hand instinctively reaches for the credentials hanging around her neck. Before she can speak or present them, Judge Wells continues, his voice rising slightly with each word. "Your attire, while fashionable, does not meet our professional standards." His eyes sweep briefly over her designer suit, missing both the subtle elegance of her outfit and the prestigious credentials hanging just below her silk scarf. Furthermore, entering my courtroom during active proceedings shows a lack of respect for this institution. The gallery watches in stunned silence. A seasoned attorney in the front row shifts uncomfortably in his seat, recognizing Thompson from her recent keynote speech at the State Bar Association. 2 law students in the back row exchange wide-eyed glances. They had just discussed one of her research papers in their legal ethics class yesterday. "That will be a $250 fine for contempt," Judge Wells declares, his gavel hovering threateningly above its sound block. "We maintain proper order in this courtroom, and I suggest you familiarize yourself with appropriate courtroom etiquette before your next appearance." The irony of the situation hangs heavy in the air. Thompson, who literally wrote the textbook on courtroom procedures and behavioral analysis, stands quietly as the judge's words echo off the oak-paneled walls. Her poise remains unshaken, her dignity intact, even as the judge's misguided assessment of her threatens to derail the morning's proceedings. In the gallery, a court reporter's fingers hover motionless above her stenotype machine. She, like everyone else in the room, senses that this moment will resonate far beyond the confines of courtroom 7B. The magnificent courtroom, with its polished oak panels and dignified portraits of former justices, falls into a deeper silence than before. Thompson remains standing, her posture perfect, emanating a quiet dignity that speaks louder than any verbal response could. The morning sunlight, streaming through the tall windows, casts a gentle halo around her silhouette, creating an almost cinematic moment of suspended time. In the front row, veteran attorney Michael Chen discreetly slides his copy of Thompson's latest bestseller, Modern Justice, a behavioral analysis, deeper into his briefcase. Just yesterday, he had quoted her work during a faculty lecture at the local law school. Now, watching her face this situation with such composure, he witnesses firsthand the principles she champions in her writing: grace under pressure, professional dignity, and the power of measured responses. 2 rows behind him, Lisa Martinez, a rising star in corporate law, unconsciously touches her own laptop, where Thompson's latest research paper sits open in a browser tab. Less than 3 hours ago, she had watched Thompson's brilliant analysis on Good Morning America, where she had discussed the psychological dynamics of high-profile cases. The irony of the current situation isn't lost on anyone in the room who recognizes her. Near the back of the courtroom, a group of law students from State University sit frozen in their seats. They had specifically chosen today to observe court proceedings because they knew Thompson would be present. Their professor had assigned her latest paper on judicial behavior patterns just last week. One student begins frantically texting under the desk, knowing this moment will soon circulate through every law school chat group in the state. The court reporter's fingers remain suspended above her stenotype machine, her years of professional neutrality tested by the scene unfolding before her. She had transcribed Thompson's testimony in other courts numerous times, always impressed by her articulate expertise. Now she captures every weighted second of silence, knowing these moments will likely appear in future case studies. Thompson's hand remains resting lightly on her credentials, but she doesn't draw attention to them. Her eyes, keen and observant as always, take in every detail of the room's reaction. As a behavioral analyst, she recognizes this as a pivotal moment, one that will likely appear in her next research paper on courtroom dynamics and unconscious assumptions. The gallery's collective tension is palpable. Several senior attorneys present have attended Dr. Thompson's seminars on judicial behavior and courtroom psychology. They've paid thousands of dollars to hear her speak at national conferences. One of them glances at his watch, knowing that in exactly 2 hours, Dr. Thompson is scheduled to give the keynote address at the State Bar Association's annual meeting, ironically, on the topic of maintaining professional dignity in challenging courtroom situations. Through it all, Dr. Thompson's expression remains neutral, professional, and poised. Her years of studying courtroom behavior have taught her that sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all. The weight of her credentials, her reputation, and her expertise hangs silently in the air, waiting for the inevitable moment of recognition. Sarah Martinez, the experienced court clerk who had served in Courtroom 7B for over a decade, feels her heart racing as she recognizes the distinguished visitor. Her sensible shoes make soft sounds against the marble floor as she hurries toward Judge Wells' bench, clutching the day's official observer list in slightly trembling hands. This document, which she had prepared meticulously that morning, now holds the power to transform the tense atmosphere. The morning sunlight shifts as a cloud passes, briefly dimming the courtroom before brightening again. Judge Wells adjusts his reading glasses, the gold rims catching the renewed light as he prepares to continue his admonishment. But before he can speak, Sarah places the document before him with unusual urgency, her finger discreetly pointing to a particular line on the page. The judge's eyes scan the paper, moving left to right with practiced efficiency until they suddenly stop. His expression shifts subtly as he reads, Darmiah Thompson, Ph.D., Federal Judicial Center, Senior Behavioral Analyst and Court Systems Evaluator. Below this impressive title runs a list of credentials that takes up 3 lines of text, including her role as principal author of the judiciary's current behavioral assessment protocols. Color rises slowly from Judge Wells' collar to his face as understanding dawns. His eyes lift from the paper to take a proper look at Dr. Thompson for the first time. The credentials hanging around her neck now seem glaringly obvious, the federal seal catching the same sunlight that had moments ago glinted off his glasses. In the gallery, those who recognize Dr. Thompson hold their breath. The young law students in the back row lean forward slightly, understanding they're witnessing a moment that will likely appear in future legal textbooks. One of them already has her notebook out, pen poised to capture every detail of this unfolding scene. Judge Wells clears his throat, a sound that echoes in the silent courtroom. His hands, resting on the bench, shift slightly as he processes the information before him. The document reveals not only Dr. Thompson's credentials, but also her purpose in his courtroom, conducting an official evaluation of judicial behavioral patterns across state courts. The senior attorneys present exchange knowing glances. They're familiar with Dr. Thompson's reputation for turning unexpected courtroom moments into powerful teaching opportunities. Her last paper on judicial conduct had revolutionized training programs in 3 states. Now they realize they're watching her gather research material firsthand, albeit in an unusually personal way. Sarah, the clerk, steps back from the bench, her duty fulfilled. She catches Dr. Thompson's eye and receives a gentle, understanding nod in return. In that brief exchange, a wealth of professional courtesy passes between 2 women who understand the delicate dynamics of courtroom protocol. The weight of the moment settles over the courtroom like a heavy cloak. Judge Wells, known for his quick decisions from the bench, finds himself in the unusual position of having to recalibrate his approach. The silence stretches as he contemplates his next words, aware that his response will likely be quoted in legal circles for years to come. As the reality of the situation settles in the courtroom, Dr. Thompson moves with quiet grace toward her designated observer's seat. Her heels make soft, measured clicks against the floor, each step deliberate and poised. The leather-bound notebook she removes from her briefcase bears the embossed seal of the Federal Judicial Center, its gold lettering catching the late morning light. Judge Wells, still visibly processing the moment, watches as she arranges her materials with practiced efficiency. His earlier words about proper courtroom etiquette now hang awkwardly in the air, an unintended irony not lost on anyone present. The flush in his face has traveled to the tips of his ears, but years of judicial experience help him maintain his composure. In the gallery, the law students who had come specifically to observe Doc Thompson frantically scribble notes. One whispers to another, "This is exactly what she wrote about in Chapter 3. Unconscious behavioral patterns in authority figures." Their professor would later tell them this was the most valuable court session they could have witnessed, though for reasons nobody had anticipated. Rebecca Chen, a senior attorney present for an upcoming case, observes how Doc Thompson opens her notebook to a fresh page, uncaps her pen, and begins taking notes with the same professional demeanor she's maintained throughout the incident. The simple act somehow transforms the awkward moment into something approaching a normal court procedure. Rebecca makes a mental note to reference this handling of difficult situations in her next junior attorney mentorship session. The court reporter, fingers now moving steadily across her stenotype machine again, captures the subtle sounds of papers shuffling and quiet movements as the courtroom gradually returns to its routine. She's documented thousands of court proceedings, but she knows this transcript will be different. It might even appear in Doc Thompson's next publication on courtroom dynamics. Near the back of the courtroom, two veteran bailiffs exchange glances. They've seen countless moments of tension in this room, but never one quite like this. They watch as Doc Thompson begins her official observation work, her pen moving smoothly across the page, recording details that will likely influence judicial training programs across the country. The property dispute case that had been interrupted resumes, though there's a notable difference in Judge Wells's tone. His words carry a new awareness, his rulings delivered with careful consideration. Every few minutes, his eyes drift briefly toward Doc Thompson, whose pen moves steadily across her notebook, capturing every nuance of the proceedings. A young intern from the district attorney's office, seated in the back row, pulls out her own copy of Doc Thompson's latest book. The chapter on maintaining professional dignity in challenging situations seems to come alive before her eyes. She watches as Doc Thompson demonstrates exactly what she's written about, how grace under pressure can transform potentially confrontational moments into opportunities for growth. The morning sun has shifted now, casting different shadows through the tall windows. The courtroom's initial tension has evolved into something more nuanced, a shared understanding that they're all participating in what will likely become a teaching moment in future legal seminars. Doc Thompson's composed presence serves as a masterclass in professional behavior, more powerful than any lecture could convey. By early afternoon, the morning's events begin circulating through legal circles with the swift efficiency of the digital age. The first mentions appear on legal blogs, where court observers share carefully worded accounts of the incident. The story spreads not as scandal, but as a thoughtful examination of professional conduct and unconscious assumptions in the justice system. Doc Thompson's office at the Federal Judicial Center receives a flood of emails and calls. Her assistant, Marcus Jenkins, fields each one with the same diplomatic response. Doc Thompson is currently focused on her ongoing court observation duties. She'll address these matters in her upcoming paper on courtroom dynamics. This professional handling only enhances her reputation among colleagues. In the courthouse cafeteria, conversations buzz around corner tables. Junior clerks and veteran attorneys alike discuss the morning's events, many sharing their own experiences with hasty judgments and learning moments. A group of public defenders recalls Doc Thompson's recent seminar on professional presence, noting how she had just demonstrated everything she taught. The State Bar Association's social media coordinator watches as mentions of the incident appear across professional networks. Legal professionals from across the country begin sharing their own stories of similar experiences, turning a potentially uncomfortable moment into a productive dialogue about professional growth and awareness. Sarah Martinez, the court clerk whose quick thinking had helped resolve the situation, finds herself surrounded by colleagues during her lunch break. "I've processed hundreds of observer credentials," she explains, stirring her coffee thoughtfully. But watching Doc Thompson handle that moment was like seeing her research come to life. Her words will later appear, anonymously, in Dr. Thompson's next paper. In the law school across town, Professor James Chen adjusts his afternoon lecture to include a discussion of the morning's events. This is why we study behavioral patterns in legal settings, he tells his eager students. Every interaction in a courtroom has the potential to teach us something valuable about our justice system. His students' hands shoot up, full of questions about Dot Thompson's work and her composed response. The courthouse security team, reviewing their daily logs, notes how Dot Thompson stopped on her way out to thank them for their service, just as she had done on her way in. This small detail spreads among the staff, adding to the growing narrative of her consummate professionalism. Even in what could have been an emotionally charged moment, she maintained her practice of acknowledging everyone's role in the justice system. By late afternoon, several judicial training programs request Dot Thompson's participation in their upcoming sessions. The incident provides a perfect case study for their curriculum on professional conduct and bias awareness. Her office begins organizing these requests, recognizing the teaching potential in this unexpected experience. Online legal forums light up with discussions about professional presence and courtroom dynamics. Young lawyers share their own experiences of being misjudged, while senior attorneys reflect on times they might have made similar assumptions. The conversation evolves beyond the specific incident to address broader themes of perception and professionalism in the legal system. Through it all, Dot Thompson continues her scheduled observations in other courtrooms, her notebook filling with insights that will inform her upcoming publications. Her response to the morning's events becomes its own lesson in turning challenging moments into opportunities for growth and understanding. 2 weeks after the incident, Dot Thompson sits in her home office, surrounded by carefully organized research notes. The early evening sun casts a warm glow across her desk as she reviews her observations from that memorable morning. Her laptop screen displays the working draft of her newest paper, tentatively titled Moments of Growth: Understanding Behavioral Patterns in Professional Settings. As she types, she pauses occasionally to reference her courtroom notes. Her approach isn't to criticize, but to analyze, drawing insights that could benefit the entire legal community. She carefully structures her analysis to protect the identity of everyone involved, focusing instead on the behavioral patterns and learning opportunities the situation revealed. Her phone lights up with a message from her publisher. They're interested in expanding this paper into a chapter for her next book. The incident has sparked discussions across the legal education community, with law schools requesting case studies for their professional ethics courses. Dot Thompson smiles, remembering her own law school days and how real-world examples had always been the most effective teaching tools. In her draft, she weaves together various perspectives: the importance of first impressions, the impact of unconscious assumptions, and the power of maintaining professional composure. She includes anonymous quotes from witnesses, each adding depth to the analysis. A young law student's observation becomes a powerful opening line. In one moment, we learned more about professional dignity than a semester of lectures could teach. At her downtown office the next morning, Dot Thompson meets with a team of judicial trainers. They're developing a new workshop series on professional awareness and courtroom dynamics. The incident provides perfect material for their interactive sessions, demonstrating how quick judgments can impact the judicial process. The key, she explains to the trainers, pointing to a diagram on her whiteboard, is understanding how these moments affect everyone in the courtroom. Her analysis reveals patterns that extend beyond individual interactions to influence the entire justice system. The trainers take detailed notes, already envisioning how this material will enhance their programs. Later that afternoon, she receives an email from a national judicial conference. They're requesting her as the keynote speaker for their annual meeting, specifically asking her to address professional growth in challenging situations. The subject line reads, "Your experience, our learning opportunity." In her response, Dot Thompson suggests a panel discussion format, wanting to include multiple voices and perspectives. She envisions a conversation that moves beyond her personal experience to address broader themes of professional development and institutional change. Her proposal includes creating educational materials that courts across the country can use in their training programs. As she finalizes her paper that evening, Thompson reflects on how a potentially difficult moment has transformed into an opportunity for widespread professional growth. Her analysis doesn't dwell on the initial misunderstanding, but focuses on the constructive lessons that emerged from it. The conclusion of her paper emphasizes resilience and growth. In the practice of law, as in life, our greatest teaching moments often arise unexpectedly. Our response to these moments shapes not only our own professional journey, but the development of our entire legal community. 6 months later, the grand conference room of the State Judicial Center buzzes with anticipation. Sunlight streams through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating rows of judges, attorneys, and legal professionals gathered for the annual Judicial Excellence Seminar. At the podium, Maya Thompson arranges her notes, her presence commanding the same quiet dignity that had turned a challenging moment into a catalyst for change. In the front row, Judge Harrison Wells sits among his colleagues, his posture reflecting both attention and respect. The past months have seen him become an unexpected advocate for professional awareness training in the court system. His willingness to acknowledge and learn from the incident has earned him newfound respect among his peers. Our courtrooms, Thompson begins, her voice carrying clearly through the packed room, are more than just venues for legal proceedings. They are spaces where human dignity meets justice, where understanding shapes outcomes. Her opening words draw knowing nods from the audience, many of whom have already implemented changes in their own courtrooms based on her recent publications. The presentation screen behind her displays data from her latest research, statistics showing how small changes in awareness have led to measurable improvements in courtroom dynamics. But it's the personal stories that capture everyone's attention, carefully anonymized examples of how conscious recognition of unconscious patterns has transformed judicial interactions. During the break, Judge Wells approaches the refreshment table where Thompson stands. Their conversation, watched discreetly by others, demonstrates the professional growth both have championed. They discuss the new training protocols implemented across the state court system, protocols that emerged directly from their shared experience. "Your work has changed how I view my role on the bench," Judge Wells admits, stirring his coffee thoughtfully. "It's not just about maintaining order, it's about creating an environment where justice truly sees everyone." Thompson's response reflects the grace that has characterized her approach from the beginning. Growth comes from our willingness to learn from every interaction. The afternoon session features a panel discussion where junior court staff share their experiences with the new awareness training. Sarah Martinez, the quick-thinking clerk from that memorable morning, describes how the incident has influenced daily courthouse operations. "We've learned to look beyond first impressions," she explains, "to see the professional beneath any surface." As the seminar concludes, Thompson surveys the room one final time. The seeds planted by that morning's incident have blossomed into systematic changes across the judicial system. New guidelines for professional interaction, enhanced training programs, and improved awareness protocols now shape courtroom experiences for everyone who enters the justice system. Outside the conference room, a group of newly appointed judges approaches Thompson to sign copies of her latest book. Its dedication page reads, "To every professional who has faced assumptions with dignity, and to those willing to grow from such moments." Judge Wells, passing by, catches her eye and offers a respectful nod, a simple gesture that speaks volumes about their journey from that morning in courtroom 7B. As the day ends, Thompson gathers her materials, satisfied with how far they've come. What could have remained a simple misunderstanding has instead sparked a movement toward more conscious, respectful, and effective judicial practices. The story has become not just a lesson in professional dignity, but a testament to how grace and wisdom can transform challenges into opportunities for lasting change.